We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Power of How. We have some very exciting news. We're no longer doing the podcast. We quit. I told Daniel this when we went to Virginia, that my wife and I were thinking of moving to Los Angeles, and it seems more and more evident that we are. And 2 weeks ago, I was like, well, I better tell Brennan this at some point because he's working his ass off. I want to know what he's getting into. And by the way, this is my MO. I start podcasts and I leave town. I'm like the deadbeat dad of podcasts. I've done it to like here. Every podcast I've done. But then it was so funny because Daniel called me that same day, and he was
the same day?
It was the same day. As I texted Brennan, I'm like, hey, we gotta talk about this at some point. And then you called me and you were like, well, if you want to tell the audience, you can, or you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, so I hit up Matt and I said, listen, I think I'm going to have to pull away from this because
I'm so sorry. I don't think this mic is working.
No?
So anyway,
We're back.
Yeah.
Daniel called me.
Yeah, so I call up Matt the same day, having no clue that, that he was going to let me know about this. And I pretty much blamed it on my kid's soccer practice. He's got way too much soccer, man. We went from 2 days. I'm not kidding. We went from 2 nights a week to like 4 nights. And he's got his piano. I'm like, dude, I have no time. No time to work. These things are during the evenings, and man, it's like 3 hours, close to 3 hours of my time to just go watch the practice, come back, and I'm like, what is going on? There's no time.
It's almost like being a parent is very time consuming.
I heard.
Have you ever heard of such a thing?
So it just went to next level this starting September, and my 2 kids are in school, and I thought that was going to be a little easier, but with after school activities, I realize I have like no time, and everything counts, and I'm pulling away from my own work, and I was planning to record my first comedy album right before COVID.
Right.
And then, COVID happened, and ever since then, I've been procrastinating, and then a little less time, then procrastinating, and next thing you know, it's like the whole point is the power of how, and, I'm trying to figure how to do this.
Right, yeah, no kidding.
And it was like, I think it was kind of perfect time because then I called Matt. And Matt, well, you want to tell your side of the story?
Well, I just want to say, you were like 3 sentences in, and I'm like, let me save you the guilt.
Yeah.
The podcast is breaking up anyway.
Yes.
And then I said to Daniel, I go, God damn it, I should have just waited 24 hours.
Right.
I could have blamed the whole thing on him.
Yeah. Because I was the one, because Matt's moving, obviously, and Daniel, you have your kids, so I was the one kind of like, obviously having 3 podcasts, having the night job, and then I got a day job to get caught up on bills, and then obviously still doing comedy. I was like, this is, and everyone's like, that's insane. You need to, like, I would talk to other comics, and they're like, 3 podcasts?
No, you got to, like, everyone has 2 on accident.
Yeah.
But 3 is
and
just
it was so much.
a court-ordered punishment.
And it was so interesting because the whole time I was like, I love doing the Power of How, so I'm not going to give that one up. The sports podcast no one really listens to, but we do it over Zoom, and there's no travel time, and I watch the games anyway. And every time I would try and quit that show, Joe, my co-host, who I love to death, would be like, well, let's just do it at a different time. We'll just move. So I'm like, all right, he's been so accommodating. I'm like, I'm not going to leave him hanging. And obviously Ex Drinking Buddy is my show. So I was like, there's no way I'd ever stop that.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to do this thing where I was trying to find time to do everything. And it turned into staying up till like 2 or 3 in the morning to cut clips and do all that kind of stuff. And then waking up at 7 to go to the gym before I had the day. And I was like, this is insane.
It was so bad. I felt so bad for you. But at the same time, it's like, well, we still have to promote this shit.
Yeah, we still have to cut. We still have to do everything.
And I would just be like if there was any kind of hiccup in the schedule, like we had such a short turnaround.
Yeah, because it was literally we would normally record on Friday, and then we had to have it up on Patreon by Saturday.
Yeah, and I was just like, fucking Brennan is gonna die doing this podcast. But you should have quit the football one. No, just kidding.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad you didn't because now you only have 2.
I had this whole idea where obviously as a recovering addict, quit is very difficult for me. Where I'm like, I don't care how much it hurts. Like I'm gonna keep doing it. And that's for a lot of stuff in life. So I was like, I'm just going to keep grinding. Like, I'm just going to keep doing this. And then we had talked a few months ago about how you were kicking around the idea of maybe going back to LA. And then you and I had a conversation where you were like, well, we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do it over Zoom or something like that. And I was like, well, the travel time alone would save me 2 hours because it's an hour in and an hour out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that could work. And then Daniel, literally that night, Daniel called me. Right. And I was at the cellar eating. And I pick up because I didn't know if it was an emergency or something. And I was like, hey, what's up? And as soon as I heard your voice, I was like, oh, I know why he's calling. And you were like, oh, call me back. So I called you back when I left the cellar, and you said exactly to me what you just said to the audience. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Quitting has such a negative connotation, but goddamn, it feels so good sometimes to just have it only took me a half an hour a day to work on this podcast, but I was like, I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I do miss, obviously meeting with you guys. But also just having daily clips was so fucking cool. I was like, wow, I'm actually doing social media now.
Yeah.
Right. This is awesome.
I was overloading on it.
Yeah.
I also feel like, the whole point of this is to, have a positive outtake on things. And I just felt like if my energy is not 100% in it anymore with everything I need to do, then if you spread yourself thin and if you're everywhere, you're kind of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly.
That's what's so difficult about doing what you love for a living is it becomes a job.
Yeah.
And there's days where you hate the thing you love.
Yep.
Right.
Because it's just causing so much stress.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
well, I mean, I'll be honest with both of you because, we're all about transparency. I felt that way.
Whoa.
Watch yourself.
There's something going on with that.
There's a cord
This
issue.
is very fragile. It's a good thing it's our last day.
But I felt that way. I honestly, just because I'm so structured with it has to be out on this day and we have to get clips up by this. So coming here, I was like, I'm going to leave here and then I got to shoot home, get all my stuff and then head straight into work. And then after work, I was going to meet another comic and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to put the video. And I was like in my head, again, just stressing.
You were in it.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to have to be up till 2 or 3 this morning. And then I have to get up early because I'm working the lunch shift tomorrow. I was like, this is going to, and I was like, oh, wait, I can just do this tomorrow after work. Not a big deal.
We can put this out Wednesday.
Right. Yeah.
We can put it out Thanksgiving.
Doesn't
We can put it out
matter.
New Year's Day.
Right.
We got no deadline anymore because we don't have to keep the momentum.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things. But the content thing was huge. We were talking about this before the mics went hot, but because I try to post a stand-up clip every Friday, I post 2 clips from Ex Drinking Buddy every week, and then we were doing 5 a week from this. I was like, I'm posting 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Mm-hmm. And then we skipped last week, and I literally my content just fell off a cliff. I was like, oh, I only have 3 clips for next week.
Yeah.
Total.
No, I'm back to no social media.
Yeah.
What happened? I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll put out a tweet. But if it ain't about what's going on in the news, no one gives a fuck about
no one even
that.
looks at it.
Right.
And it's all down to videos now anyway. So I got to come up with something for
New
social
content,
media.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad we did this because this podcast really took me out of my comfort zone. I was like, okay, we're gonna do a podcast about positivity. That's that's a lot to take on.
Yeah, right.
Especially when you don't feel positive all the time.
Yeah.
And I knew we were kind of going against the grain because the internet is a place where people get together and bitch about shit.
Yeah.
And comedians, that's what comedians do. And I don't know. I'm just happy we did this.
Yeah. I also think that, I don't know. I don't see it as quitting. I see it's like a painting can go on forever. You can just keep on painting and adding layers, and then but there's a time when it feels like boom, it's done, and may call it synchronicity or whatever it is inside of us. Maybe something inside of us all just told us like this is the time, and for whatever reason. And
because the timing was perfect for all three of us.
Yeah, and there's no resistance, there's no conflict, and just we went with the flow, and we got to trust that. And that's why it doesn't really feel like quitting. It feels like an end to this great thing that we did.
And we're also, I plan on keeping
we're gonna keep everything
episodes
up.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to it at certain times.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe once a year or like whatever the fuck,
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well,
if one of us gets famous.
Where are they now?
One of us blows up with something.
And the two other guys can cash in.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
I'll be knocking on your door in L.A.
How's that for positive?
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Or all three of us fucking are huge and it's just a super group.
Yeah. We
Like,
become the next smart list.
The tour.
Yeah.
Dude,
You
as
know.
long as we're happy and we follow our bliss and what makes us, what makes us happy, man. That's all that matters. We get so caught up in what do we need to do, and we lose sight of just sometimes just going with the flow of things. I feel we really get caught up in what we need to do and all the pressures, not only on social media, but the pressures that we put to our
That's what's funny.
It's on our heads.
That's what's funny. You dream about like being your own boss,
Right.
and everything, and then you find out you're the worst employee. No,
right. No, but not only we are the worst bosses. You know what I mean?
Sorry about that. Yeah, there's something going on
that
with
better?
that. We might want to just
Maybe
like
it's this
forget
one.
about the headphones. That's good.
It's
yeah.
not picking up on the
Just,
phone, is it?
Yeah, no, it's
Not
not
gonna
picking
touch
up.
it.
But let's keep going the best we can. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I feel like we're the worst bosses. Like we want to have no bosses, but like we're worse than any boss because we put so much pressure on ourselves.
Oh yeah, we're
You know what
asshole
I mean?
bosses.
Yeah. I had that experience Saturday. I was off Saturday because I had a show. And it was like an audition / Tracy wanted to bring all her friends. So I got this show. And then Sunday I was off because I'm off on Sundays now. And it was so funny because Friday night we were slammed at the restaurant. I remember at one point thinking like, oh, you're off Saturday, Sunday. Don't even worry about it. Friday, no big deal. Like we'll just get through this. But I'm such an asshole boss to myself. I was like, no, like you got to get up early tomorrow, hit the gym, hit 2 or 3 open mics before the show tonight, like on Saturday night. And then Sunday, you're going to sleep at Tracy's. And then Sunday, you're going to hang out with her and then go. So it's like, you're not off. Who the fuck said you were off?
Brennan's running a sweatshop.
Yeah. But in my head, I had to get back to that power of how mentality in my head where I was just like, listen, you have one show on Saturday. That's the only thing you're obliged to be at.
Right.
Like you don't have to do it. And I didn't.
Yeah.
Slept in, woke up a little later, went to the gym, kind of hung out at the house, didn't do any mics, and then just went to the show. And I was like, oh, I did great. Like it was fine.
Yeah, and it's also like hypocritical if we, we're trying to do this whole podcast on the power of how, and if it brings all that stress and anxiety and pressure, we're going against the very point of why we're doing this.
Just screaming at people. I have to get my positivity podcast out.
As soon as you're out of the bank, in other words, we recorded like 10 episodes or something that we just had on reserve, and we had.
Right.
As soon as those were gone, it was like, here we
got
are.
real, yeah.
Now we're podcasters.
'Cause we had
now
it
we're
banked.
working every fucking week.
We had it.
know?
We had it when we started. We had like
The
10
luxury.
episodes, and then it would be like, hey, I'm out of town. Don't worry about it. You were
Hey,
gone for
man.
like 2 weeks. You were gone for like 2 weeks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Easy. No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I'll get one from the bank.
And it's so interesting how much that mirrors life. Like when I've talked about it before, but moving to New York and being set, and then the breakup, the move, and the one-person show,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden I was same thing, out of money in the bank, and I was like, oh, this is a lot more stressful when you have to like week to week do it. And it's the same with podcasting. Like once you run out of banked episodes, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, I want to hear about this because you guys went to Philly.
Oh yeah.
So you guys did a little tour together. I got to hear
Yeah, I
about
did
this
2 nights in Philly, baby.
I asked the guys how it went, and they're like, well, let's save it for the podcast. I'm like, this got to be juicy.
Well, it's just
It was juicy. Capital J.
it's very interesting. It's a very interesting subject because there's thinking positively, there's like thinking negatively about something. Oh, there's thinking like realistically about something, and like where does that fit in to the first two? Because it's got so many red flags dealing with this club, like things that would be just a regular 1-sentence email for like somebody at the Funny Bones, say,
like a veteran,
where like we need to talk about this on the phone,
Right.
like just about like the opening acts, which most clubs, this is not an issue. It's
Right.
just like they book the opening acts or I book them,
Right.
and that's as far
That's
as it
it.
goes.
Yeah.
This was very confusing about like who's going to pay, and like there was like a door deal, and then if that door deal happens, then you're paying, and then like there was like this hotel credit, but there was no real hotels, and it was just really, it was a lot more work than I'm used to.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like I was dealing with somebody who wasn't very experienced.
And you didn't get all that in writing? Like
I got everything in writing. There's a
Okay.
contract. There's everything, but the contract was so long.
Jesus.
It was confusing.
Yeah, there's no contract
And
when we play
and
club.
and spoiler alert, we didn't really go by the contract at the end of the day. We didn't.
Oh yeah, because I haven't seen you since.
Well,
Now let's put into context. This is a new comedy club that you guys played for.
yeah.
And it's called...
Well, I don't even want to say the
Okay.
name, even though
Okay.
we've said the name a bunch of times,
Okay.
because I can't give this
Right.
club a good rating, but I really like the guy personally that's
Yeah.
running it. So I don't really want to trash him, but I don't know how we can't tell this story.
So what happened?
Yeah, so I got a call from him, a call, not an email, months ago, that was like, hey, I got good news. The show is sold out. It's this organization of a women's group of Philadelphia with an official title. It's an official organization.
Okay.
And I go, that sounds like a corporate event.
Yeah.
I'm not the right comic. They need to pick the right comic for that event because, of course, I obviously have women in the audience all the time. But as a group, a special interest group, like, I'm not the fucking guy. I'm just not. And I was a gentleman. I said, I don't want to stand in the way of your money. You can do the show without me. Since, you're going to be just hire another comedian. Yeah. I'm not the guy. I know I'm not the guy. I'll go down and I'll do one night that weekend. I really forfeited the night. And he emailed me 3 weeks later, and he was like, we're back to the original plan. The group isn't on.
It's all taken care of.
Yeah. And so I go down there and there's a bar restaurant downstairs, and me and Brennan we look, and this is where thinking positive, thinking negatively comes in. We're looking and we go, well, this looks like the demographic of that group, but can't be.
It's just like all women.
Can't
Yeah.
be. Can't be.
Professional,
Older.
Right.
Older
Well-to-do.
women, very dressed up,
Religious.
like a night out look. Yeah,
Religious. Not like my cynical, slightly rebellious type of material.
Yeah.
They're not there for that. It's just obvious. In fact, they even told one of the comedians that.
Yeah.
They said, we're a women's professional group, and we are not here for comedy, is what somebody
That's
told.
what they told the host right before he went up.
Yeah.
And then the host, when he got on stage, cursed, and almost in unison, the group was like, there will be none of that this evening.
Yeah. And then...
You gotta be kidding.
And so what happened was the male...
So wait, what were they there for?
So I'm about to tell you, the male counterpart of this group, this is a women's group and a men's group, were they booked it for the women.
As a nice night out.
But the women didn't want it. They booked 5 male comedians.
Straight white male comedians.
Yeah, everybody, just regular white dude.
Yep.
And we were not right. And the only moment that I got any acknowledgeable love is when I told a joke about 3-4 minutes in, and I go, I think this club booked the wrong comics for this event. Because when I sat down and I saw the guy running the place, and I go, dude, this looks like the group I said I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, they just bought tickets. But
Wow.
he then later leaked the info to me that he knew that morning that he had fucked up. And anytime someone buys 100 tickets in bulk, that's a group.
Yep.
That's now like a corporate event. That's now like the club's responsibility to overcharge for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's also more money.
And if it's an organization,
Right.
they get to pick out the comedian.
Right.
Yeah.
So he fucked up so badly when I was so clear that I didn't want to do this show. And everyone just ate dicks all night.
Really?
It was awful because it wasn't
was
just bombing. It was
Nobody was listening.
the group was just talking.
Full volume.
You ever go up and do a show and it's like there's no quiet between the jokes? It's just like, we did a bar gig.
Yeah.
We did a bar gig and a corporate all at the same time.
Yep.
In Philly, no less. I mean, this is like the Comedy Olympics.
Yeah. It was interesting, too, because
This is like a boot camp.
talking about positivity, we saw, like Matt had mentioned. But I just want, for everyone listening, and Daniel, you'll understand this, like, just picture you have this conversation with the booker. He says it's all straightened out. And then as we show up to the club, we see these two tables of all women who fit this demographic of that group. And me and Matt look at each other, and I'm like, it can't be.
We're like, nah. We don't even say anything.
Yeah.
We're just like, nah.
We
can't
just look
be.
at each other and we go, no. And in my head, I'm like, this is impossible. Matt told him specifically, just have them pick out the comic they want. It's their event.
And
Like,
I forfeited the money.
yeah. And then we got upstairs and the room was empty. So in my head, I'm like, maybe I'm right. Maybe that's not the people. Maybe it's just happenstance.
But if you're me, there's still a little devil on your shoulder going, you know exactly what this fucker did.
Yep.
Wow.
And then it filled up. Like I said, the first comic went up. And they,
So they booked the host and the first comic, or did you?
the
host,
club
did
booked
you
the host
feature?
the
Club-
first two
the only
comics.
person that wasn't booked by the club was Brennan.
Me, baby.
Okay, so how many comics? 5?
Five
in total.
comics just getting killed.
Well, it's funny because the
Wow.
host was like, I'll do 10, and then I'll bring up the next guy who will do 10, and then the guy after him will do 10, and then Brennan, you're going to do 20, and then it slowly devolved into the host did 3, the next guy did 5, the next guy did 6. I got over 6, and I was like, thank you. The only saving grace I had was no one was listening. They were just having full volume conversations at their table.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get people's attention. But like it's hard to make jokes when only like 2 or 3 people hear you. Like even if
It
you're coming
also
off the cuff.
it messes with the timing.
Oh, yeah.
It messes with the experience. It's okay to have an uncomfortable silence, but and also but just to talk into an abyss of people talking.
Yeah.
And also the lighting is really bright.
So you can see everything.
So it's like you're just lost. There's no reason for anyone to pay attention to the comedian. It's just an annoyance for people trying to have conversations, which I've done corporates where that's what it's like.
Right.
Or like you do like a college or something like
Yeah.
that, and that's what it's like. And, you know,
I hate it when they say one thing and they don't deliver on the promise. I remember I had a corporate gig once, and listen to this. I said, make sure. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure you guys have a stage, a lighting, and a mic.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure people are sitting up front, and it's properly. The seats are properly placed, and that's all I ask. That's all I ask. And they said, no problem. I show up. No stage, no lighting, and the crowd is divided like a wedding, to the right and to the left. There's no one in front of me. I tanked so bad that they asked for their money back.
What?
Yes, yeah. They asked for their money back, and I was getting laughs when I started roasting like the boss. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to end up doing what I want to do, and I did whatever I wanted to. And I had a group of tables that were really digging it because
That's all you need.
I went full out. I didn't care at that point.
Yeah.
But it was too far for them and for the organizers and the boss. And I kind of roasted the boss, and he hated it, though they liked it. But it was just such a bad experience because they did not deliver on what they promised.
Yeah.
And who the hell performs without a stage and no light? And
So you're just sitting like.
I had to walk around like
just
I'm
standing.
hosting a wedding. I'm not even kidding. With these people that
You didn't give
I
them
don't
money
even
back, did
know.
you?
No, are you
yeah.
kidding
you
me?
can't.
I can't. No way. Not only that, the booker. I told the booker about it. I said, "Listen, and he says you're absolutely right. They said they were going to do that, and finally, thankfully he agreed with me. But But I couldn't help but feel offended that they wanted their money back. Like that never happened to me. And but it's a great story.
Yeah. And actually, it sounds like it went relatively well for the situation.
Yeah, it was okay, but it was one hell of a slap to the face.
It was, but like them wanting their money back. I mean, they see a comedy show once every 5 years, and they don't understand it's not something you can just drop from a helicopter into a field.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's got to have, and that's what this club owner didn't understand either. The club was not set up right. There was no introduction to the host.
It's an event space that they were trying to
it's an event space, so it's not a comedy club.
No.
It's not just a comedy club, even though it's named as a comedy club. It's mostly like DJ events, karaoke, like all this.
You can tell it's like super tall ceilings, and then there's a stage, but the stage takes up like a quarter of the like back part of the room, and it's space for a DJ booth and stuff like that. And so you can tell that it's not designed. Let me put it that way. It's not designed as a comedy club.
So does it look like a comedy club? Okay.
But I mean, you walk in and it looks like a night, like an event space, like a place you go hang out.
To the point, the next night was a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Should have been a piece of cake, but the way they run it and the way they let just people like walk up from the bar, essentially, and the way they sat people all like scattered around and all the lighting and the big room. The next night wasn't much easier. It was like a lot better, but it was just so hard to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Like everybody wanted to talk.
One girl was passed out at the table.
Oh, boy.
And there were still minor groups showing up.
Yeah.
Like you could look at this thing and go, that's this group. That's this group. Like there was like some sort of bachelorette party.
Oh, yeah.
And then
A birthday and then
it was a lot better and still
Not fun.
Still not great. And I can't blame it on Philly at all because I've done Helium.
It's
I've
amazing.
done
So much fun.
Philly Punchline, and they're both fantastic. And I fucking, it hurts me to like say all this about the club, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
They could use me as a consultant, I think.
Well, and it was it was weird because Matt obviously has the album title. This is the part of the job I hate, but that's what it was. Like I had never been to Philly. So Matt was a super gracious headliner, showed me around. We went to all the cool historic spots because I like that kind of stuff. So Matt's showing me all this stuff. Matt, we're going to get lunch and we went to the movies and we're just having a great time. And then we go to get on stage and I'm like, I texted Tracy after the first show and I go, I think I might have chosen wrong. Like, I don't think I'm a good comic. Because just that whole idea of being in comedy as long as I have and not being able to get any semblance of control of that room, I was really doubting myself as a comedian. And then Matt, I was waiting outside for Matt. I didn't see Matt set. And then Matt came out and he was the first thing you said to me, he go, dude, don't even worry about that.
Right.
Well, I didn't say anything to him about what I had texted Tracy. I didn't say anything about it. But just as another comic, you could feel like this was a weird anomaly kind of a thing. Like, don't worry about it. Because I honestly was in my head like, why couldn't I take control? Like, I've done rowdy bar shows before. Like, I'm a Florida comic. Like, I've dealt with this kind of stuff before. Like, what? And I just kept questioning everything. And then Matt, true to his form, was just like, dude, don't even fucking worry about that.
It was like I managed on the second show to like fucking tap in. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, material's not going to work.
Yeah.
I need to like fucking just don't even, sometimes you're about to walk on stage and you're like, all right, say this and you say this. And he said, no. Open up the flow. And I was able to, like I attacked the audience. Like I got up on a part of the stage that wasn't part of the stage. It was like really high up. And like I had to do all these tricks. And every time I went into material, you could just see people start talking.
Yep.
And it was like, so I just bullshitted for like 35 minutes. And
that's a cool short set though, as opposed to like some clubs want 45 to an hour.
Well, yeah, no, but I made the call because I was like, I'm never coming back to this club. And these people just didn't feel like they wanted to be there very much. And so my philosophy was like, why put us through this?
Yeah.
It was fun to like be in the moment and make fun of the room for a while, but then it's like, what's another 10 minutes? Every time I started telling a joke, I could just see people start talking because the fucking lights were on.
Yeah.
And you could hear it. And it was just so barely in my control when it was in my control. I had to move quick. I had to speak quickly. I had to like fucking go so goddamn hard that I was just like, I was under the impression that like a lot of the people didn't pay to get in.
Yeah.
Like, I felt bad about that. It's like, because I advertised the show, and then of course, like maybe one person comes to see it for real, and it's like kind of a disaster. And I feel bad about that. But I also can't blame myself for most of it.
Yeah.
Like it was run so poorly. And
It was.
I just so glad it's over.
Yeah.
And then I came home and I watched this movie called The Road Dog.
What's that?
It's Doug, you like Doug Stanhope.
Yeah.
It's about this guy that just bounces from town to town, and he's an alcoholic, played by Doug Stanhope.
So Doug Stanhope.
It is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. When you watch it, you kind of think that. You're like,
Yeah.
this is Stanhope's life. Stanhope actually has a following, and Stanhope actually, like, he doesn't. This is for like someone. This is based on someone less.
Okay.
He didn't
I see
write
what you're
it.
saying.
He didn't write it. He did produce it and star in it, but it's about someone who just like takes a bus from bar to bar show.
Oh, wow.
That's what it's really kind of about. And he's like super alcoholic, and that's his. But the thing about Stanhope,
can relate to this.
The thing about Stanhope is he drinks a lot, but most of his material is not about drinking.
Yeah.
This comedian in this movie, he's like most of his material is about drinking, and he's drinking on it.
Where do you find the movie?
It's on. I just rented it off Apple TV or something. But there's other
That
platforms.
sounds super interesting.
Is it an
It's-
old one or a good a new movie?
It's new. It just came out.
Oh.
And it's not perfect, but it's really good. But it's really fucking depressing, and you will watch it and go, well, the road life is over anyways. It's not like you can build a career just
Yeah.
on the road.
Right.
You have to set up and advertise yourself nowadays.
It's digital now,
And
right?
we
All
should
digital.
really start a podcast after this because we're gonna need the traffic on the internet.
Well, it's a lot like Sam Tallent's book. I don't know if you guys read it, Running the Light, but it's a similar thing where this guy, same kind of thing, where he gets a big break and goes on like Letterman, but then nothing really materializes from that. So he's just doing bar show to bar show. But was at one point like 10, 15 years prior, like a huge deal.
Right.
So I always find that fascinating because moving to New York, because I'm the youngest as far as life in New York out of the two, because you've been here for almost 10 years, you've been here for even longer, where it's one of those interesting things where I got to New York and I was like, I'll never leave. I'll never leave. As long as I can pay my rent, I'll never leave. And then after the shows in Philly, I was like, maybe I should leave. Maybe I should go back to Florida. And then luckily Matt was there to talk me off the ledge and just be like, dude, it was just, it was a crazy set of circumstances.
And then he left. He's like, I'm going to leave.
And he's like, I'm actually going back to L.A. later.
Have fun. No, I was going through the same thing, and then I made the mistake of watching The Road Dog. I was like, this is brutal. I was like, I'm not going back on the road to go back on the road. Like, I need to build something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so much, the road is so different. And I mean, I'm sure you two have both experienced this, but the road is so different when you have that following. It's like, it's got to be apples to oranges, because we've all done a million like shitty bar shows and one-nighters and all this kind of stuff. But I couldn't imagine like going to a town where the only kind of point of reference I have to that is when I was having my going away show in Jacksonville, and like everyone showed up. So there's like 100 people at this room that only fits like 60.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, and no matter what I said on stage, everyone was like, yeah.
Right.
And I was like, literally, that was one of the big things where I was like, I know I'm destined to do comedy.
Right.
And I couldn't imagine having a big enough following where every show you do is like that. Where it's just all your fans, and they're like, we love you.
Yeah, and then like one night they're only half that energy, and they're like, "What's wrong with this crowd?"
Yeah.
All they did was face this direction and laugh, and shut up in between the
I
jokes.
could not imagine what that feels like.
But it's kind of cool to know that when you don't have a following, to know that you can win over a really cold crowd.
Yeah.
Because when you have that love immediately, it's nice. But you also ride that wave.
There's an upside to both.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you're the unknown guy, then you can like unleash your greatest hits on these people.
Yeah.
You can do all your tricks and everything. When you have that type of following, they know everything.
I've heard
and you're
comics talk about that,
constantly having to fill an hour.
Well, and there's also the flip side too, is
A new hour.
When you live in New York or LA or Austin or one of these places, especially in New York, I would assume, because there's so many clubs and so many spots. like not like you can go up at the stand or the cellar or something, and that's not going to be your audience. Yeah, there might be pockets of people who came there just to see you, but I've heard comics talk about huge comics that sell arenas and talk about, yeah, I did like 3 sets at the cellar and I bombed 2 out of 3.
Right.
Or like, thank God Esty wasn't in the room because she might have unpassed me because it was so bad. And I'm like, oh yeah, when you're always playing to your audience, you can't grow.
You grow, but you grow in one direction.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So if you just go up in front of people who don't know who you are and you're on like your 4th hour, the first 3 hours set up a lot of who you are. Mm-hmm. Like when you go up on stage, you have to establish who you are. Mm-hmm. That's what like gets people in. Maybe you're a guy with a funny fucking joke, or maybe you're just a guy that's appealing or whatever. Yeah. And when you get up there and you're like, start talking about your kids by name, people are like, who the fuck is this? Not to mention, New York's kind of a bitch anyways. The whole world is there. It might be like 50 people, but there's people from all over the world, including drunk college students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a wild ride. I mean, it was fun too these last like 2 months between doing the show, going to Philly, and like having that experience, because I had never had, other than like I featured before, but it's always been with like my buddies in like the Southeast, like areas that I'm comfortable in. So it was cool to go to a city I had never been to, and it's like, oh, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, we're gonna do comedy. And you know what I mean? Like that was it sounds so stupid, but even like when I would tour in the Southeast, like it was a lot of shows, like I said, where I would just drive myself, do the show, and then drive home. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not staying anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a cool experience. And then on top of, doing the podcast and everything like that, it was a wild ride. But like you said, I think it was one of those things where almost serendipitously we were all kind of like, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Well, it is true. We've got an objective for this podcast. We kind of got there sometimes. It's difficult because it's almost like an abstract objective for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be too self-helpy, but we don't want to ignore our premise.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we got there.
Yeah, and sometimes just talking about it and saying things, like we know most of this stuff, but just saying it, sometimes it reminds us just as much as, we need to be reminded when you actually physically, those words come out of your mouth, it has an impact on you. It's not only, if a buddy calls you and he needs advice, sometimes you could be in a very close spot or just as down as he is, but you won't tell him that.
Right.
But trying to bring that person up brings yourself up because you tell them what they need to hear, but they need to hear it just as much as you need to say it.
Yeah.
And it's mutually helpful. So I think, us getting together once a week and just talking about it, it puts us in a different place, at least for a moment, and it reminds us why we need to do this.
Yeah, and I need to go back to therapy now.
Well, we're going to leave the episodes up because I've said it a million times, but I always feel better leaving this whenever we finish recording. So it'll be nice to have those up, and I can just go back and listen to them. And be like, oh, yeah, remember when that was happening?
One thing I think we always did well on this show is like we might get into like a negative place where like maybe we're complaining about something or even airing our grievances about something, and then instead of just leaving it there, we definitely had like, well, you can do this, you can do that, this is another way to look at it. I don't think we ever dropped the ball on that.
No,
so I think that's good.
No, and I think it's so important to just have a positive outlook on everything. This weekend I had a really tricky show. I was playing the Stress Factory for the first time, and there's like 2 rooms. So there's the main room, and they put out a tent, like a huge tent outside where headliners play, and it's kind of like you headline at the same time as the other headliner, but it's in a different room. One is outside and one is
and it's a pretty good setup, right?
It's great.
It looks good visually. I've never seen anyone perform there.
Some comics don't like it and some comics love it. And when you walk in, it's surprising how big it is. And, at the same time, you walk inside the club and, Bill Bellamy was there. Mm-hmm. And Bill Bellamy is like a comedy hero of mine. And the crowd was just so hot. And it was
Yeah.
like his crowd.
Yeah.
And he's so smooth. He's so funny. And then you go back outside. It's a little cold. You know, they have a little heater or something. Like I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
New Jersey drivers like honking their horns and
yeah,
shit.
and I could have really been like, oh, I wish I could be inside. I wish I could have that crowd. I wish I could be on that stage, and my show would have gone a completely different way. And if I said, you know, I'm outdoors, people paid to be here. I'm closing it out for 45 minutes. This is the first time I'm headlining this stress. Like, this is how they're kind of introducing me in.
Right.
And the show went great.
Awesome.
And I had a great conversation with the owner, Vinny. And Vinny's like, you know what? A lot of comics, they hate that outdoor space. And like, the headliners work both outside and inside. And he said, some great comics just decide that it's going to be a bad show.
Right.
And it becomes a bad show.
Right.
And so, and that's a great reminder of you're always facing certain circumstances that you can't control. And there are things that are completely out of reach and out of your control. But what you can control is how you approach things.
Yeah.
And how you decide you're going to play or behave or it could go either way, but it has a lot to do with what you decide internally.
Right.
And if you don't make that decision quickly, it'll go south, or it could be, you know, how many times did we have like a mic with, you know, 7 people in the audience?
Yeah.
And that beats any show we did for 300-400
Right.
people because we had fun. We tried new jokes. They worked or they didn't, but we were loose. We weren't caged into our jokes.
Yeah,
right.
you can, a quote unquote bad circumstance like that can actually give you the opportunity to do the comedy you actually want to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like if you go up in front of 400 people, you're like, all right.
And the bookers in the back of the room.
A joke, a joke,
Right.
a joke,
Right.
a joke.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know. I still haven't figured out why that works with well, I guess I know. It works with a big crowd. You do that in front of a small crowd, they're like, what is this, Chuck E. Cheese? Is this an animatronic robot?
It feels so much worse in front of a smaller crowd, and it's something weird about that.
Yeah,
like
it's because a small group, they deserve individual attention.
Yeah,
a loud group or a big group is like, all right, this is one size fits all.
Yeah.
Like boom, here you go.
Yeah.
This is the best version for the masses.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you're up in front of 7 people. You talk to them, you figure out what they're about. You can cater to them, what they want to do, and you can put a little tags on, like, except for you, because X, Y, and Z, and it's so much fun.
And you can call back with, whatever.
People know you're coming
talking about Jim over here, remember? And everyone's like,
it gets intimate.
It's way more authentic.
Yes,
but
that's
like,
the key.
I've tried the Bang Bang thing, and I've tried. I don't mean to interrupt, but I've tried that for smaller crowds, like the a joke, and they're just looking to exactly what you're saying. They're just looking like, the fuck is this asshole doing?
Yeah.
Because he's not even looking at the audience. Like I'm looking into the lights, and there's like 7 people.
Yeah. And the best feeling is when there's.
So bad.
I think we do our best.
Yeah.
And this is a thing. Club owners and bookers mainly will never understand.
Mm-hmm.
They will never understand because they're not comedians, but they will never understand how better we are when we are loose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they think that pressure, you have to perform under pressure, and they want to see if it could get this is not the Olympics.
They do that. They go up to you and be like, you better be funny tonight because that's the fucking boss. That's Jeff Improv right there.
Right.
This is a make or break.
Bud is in the back of the room.
And it's when you don't care. It's when you don't care. And even when that pressure is there and you don't care about that pressure, that's when you're at your most free.
That's the ultimate.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
And it sucks to play for. You know, how many times did you have a killer set, and people come up to you like, "Yo, that was killer," and you're like, "It's all right."
Right.
It's like, I didn't have fun. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have like an okay set, and you go back home like, I murdered
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I did what I wanted to.
Having a good time.
For me, it's whether I felt dumb or not.
Right.
Like that's the only thing I measure it by. Did I feel dumb or embarrassed, or did I feel like good about what I did?
Like embarrassed in terms of
Sometimes you say the wrong thing, or you play it the wrong way, and you feel it while you're up there. You're like, you almost are judging. You're almost putting it on yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, they're thinking this about me because you're thinking that about you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But if I go up there and be like, I made all the right choices, all the right instincts.
Right.
I got 3 laughs, but I never felt silly or dumb and it's okay to feel silly or dumb. But I mean, like, feeling silly or dumb for 15 minutes straight can be like really, it can make you feel bad.
Right.
So basically it's about like, you do know whether you did well or not.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you piss somebody off, you're like, well, I clearly did something wrong. There's something about what I'm saying that is like going to make people mad.
Right.
And you have to deal with that from there.
Yeah.
Probably just don't do it in front of 7 people.
Yeah.
Because I find with my most offensive jokes, if I'm in front of like a couple thousand people, I can just steamroll with the awful ideas.
Yeah.
But if you're in front of, say, even like 200 people at a shopping mall, people will be like, oh, wait a minute. Because at that point, it becomes like a town meeting. Like, no, we don't say that here. No, I don't think
That's
so,
exactly
mister.
what happened in Philly.
Right.
Yeah. But that was more vocal, which at least we got the official thing that, woof, what a disaster.
I felt bad for that host, man. He got up there, no intro or anything, just walked up onto the stage, and everyone was like, what's he? And then remember that guy came in the green room. Speaking of pressure.
Yeah, people, so then the guy that booked the crew, he came up to me. He did just that, what you're saying.
Yeah.
The guy that booked this, he's kind of freaking out because none of the comics are getting laughs. And he walks up, he's like, who's the headliner? He walks in the green room. Who's the headliner? I'm like, me. He's like, you better win over this crowd. You better get this going. You better. And I'm like,
We want these ladies to have a great time tonight. Is what
I'm
he
like,
said.
And that was the dude that called you?
No.
This is a dude who had no business telling me anything.
This was the male counterpoint, like president or whatever, who booked it for the women.
the women's.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with the club itself. Yeah.
And it's like, no. So he fucked up, and now he's putting it on me.
Yeah.
And I pretty much told him, like, this is a terrible scenario. No one's listening. I'm going to do my best.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I said. That's not what he wanted to hear. And the men's group pretty much took over the green room by the time I was back.
When I went to go, because Matt was like, meet me outside after my set. So I went to go get my bag while Matt was on stage.
Yeah.
And Matt's on stage, I'm getting my bag, and like the men's group like took over. Like there was no, like I was like, oh, so if I wanted to sit down now, I just wouldn't be allowed to. Like, so I just packed my bag and met Matt outside.
And you know what's funny is I put this together after we left. First of all, forget that they didn't want to see a comedy show. All right. Before we get on stage, it's an hour of my ears are still ringing from this DJ.
Yeah.
That's DJing in front of this women's group.
Seating, yeah.
It's just like blaring. And then the DJ comes back and he starts criticizing the comedy show. He's like, the host should have done this. And I'm telling him, I'm like, this host is in a bad situation. This club is run poorly, blah, blah, blah. But now I got like the DJ like in my head and he's talkative, blah, blah, blah. So this is what I put together after we got back. The guy that booked and runs the club was like, yeah, I had no idea this corporate group was coming. But did you see a DJ the second night?
No. Oh, shit. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together.
He's full of shit.
We got a detective here.
Bruce Wayne over here.
I'm quitting the podcast to go town to town to solve mysteries. I should be like, or Todd Glass or somebody should be like, you know how they have those like kitchen or those kitchen shows where the guy goes around.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to fucking clean your deep fryer.
You should,
Yeah.
Comedy Confidential.
So it was only 2 shows?
Yeah.
And was the money decent at
Don't
least?
never say only 2 shows.
Not in this.
The money.
No, but usually it's like 4 to 5.
The money was decent for what it was.
Yes.
But I would have turned it down based on my instincts. My instincts were right on for months.
You knew it.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
told
I
me.
knew it.
You
I
texted me
knew
and
it.
said, hey, man, I
knew
think
it.
Philly might be off. And I was like, don't even worry about it. I'll pick up some shifts at work.
Yeah.
They would rather me not go because they want me to be at work. And then we ended up going through with it. And
I don't think we've talked about anything more on this podcast besides positivity, as this gig smells fishy to me. And God damn it, you hate to be right. You just hate to be right.
My brother always said it growing up. The one problem with being so smart is you always know how the movie's going to end.
And it was worse than I thought.
We saw this coming.
But it was exactly what I thought it was be based on what he told me and what I told him. I told him. And everyone hated him too.
How?
The group hated him.
Yeah,
and I called him out on stage. I'm like, that's who did it. I pointed right at him. I said his first and last name. He's the guy that fucked up your night.
Wow.
They were pissed.
How did you leave it off with him?
We were all
I got the fuck out of
and dandy, but...
Fun fact, I had a couple of friends of mine from New York, friends of my other podcasts and stuff, been on. They were like, we're in Philly this weekend, and I know them, so I'm like, you're not at Helium or Punchline. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. What are you saying?
So then I check their stories, and they're taking pictures. Guess where at?
Jester?
Wow. Yeah.
They're your friends or comics?
They're comics. They're comics that are like I've met through the New York scene.
Oh, but not the night we were there.
No.
Because this is one of those shows like, I don't want anybody I've seen it.
No.
I'm yelling at people to put their phones down. Do not tape this. This is not my best work.
No, but
just
it was
yelling at people.
It was like friends of mine that I met through the New York comedy scene who were like, we're going to Philly. Like what I was doing. Philly this weekend. And I'm like, I know you're not at Helium because that would be like... I would know who you're going with. And you're just going by yourself. So I wonder what you're up to.
Yeah.
And you check their stories, and it's like all over where they're at. And I was like, good luck to you, my friend. Good luck to you.
No, they're going to do that typical New York comic thing where they'll be like, it's cool. You just got to just got to get in the zone. I had fun. As soon as you hear someone say, I had fun, it's like, yeah, fuck you, man. Yeah, you might have had fun.
They're going to do that thing where they take pictures of like just the first two people, the back of their heads onto the stage. So it looks
right.
Packed audience, man. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
Okay, yeah, that is.
It.
So
how is that script?
Overall,
okay.
it was a great experience.
Yes.
No.
I learned a lot.
I learned, like, I'm going with my instincts from now on. I know better than... I just know better for certain things. But I'll probably fall for it again. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, and most of the good money gigs are shitty. Most of them.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what the money's for, as they say.
Yep. What Don Draper says.
Oh, yeah, that's where I found that.
She's like, what about my affirmations? He's like, that's what the money is for. What about my compliments? No compliments, money. I think that's going to do it for the Power of How.
Yeah.
We're taking a break. Hopefully, we'll be back from time to time to check in with you. Yeah. And it was so great working with you guys. And
it's been fun.
I can't wait to work with you guys in different ways over the next couple decades.
We'll come out to LA, baby.
The next 4 decades. I'm going to think positively for myself.
Yeah, I have a lot of love for you guys. You know, I told you, and I told you as well. You know, Matt, we met back in Montreal when
Bush was president,
right? And I had just started doing comedy, and man, I fell in love with your style. It was so refreshing. I tell you this all the time, and you're just so fucking funny, man.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy I got to be part of this, and for such a good cause too, right? It's so different. And Brennan, man, I think, man, you have a really bright future in comedy.
Appreciate it.
You're the hardest working dude I know. I'm not kidding. You're insanely hardworking, and it's just that's all it takes, man. Just being consistent, and you have it, and you're fun to be with. People love you. I think this is it was a beautiful experience, and I want to do like where are they today? You know, where are they now?
We'll do some reunions.
Matt is on his 11th podcast. Hoping it works out.
Yeah.
But you were clearly the guy. I was telling Brennan, I'm like, we got to have this guy.
Yeah.
This guy, you're like an encyclopedia.
You are the Power of How, man.
No,
Daniel,
I'm the
you are
how.
the
I'm
Power
the
of
how. I'm the how.
Man, I've learned so much from you.
I'm just trying to figure everything out, and I just didn't want to feel hypocritical doing this and not fully investing my energy and love. And it's life is challenging, man. I remember once having a conversation with my brother, and it's like, man, it's just, man, family, work, health, you know, friendship. It's like just everything just becomes so much pressure. And he says, you know what? Life is pressure.
It is, man.
And it's how you deal with that pressure. And as long as I felt like I'm staying authentic to what I need to do and why I'm here in New York and how I can provide for my family and be the best I can be, because you'll always sacrifice something. You'll either sacrifice your health or your work or your relationship or your mental health. Something's got to give. And the key is to always keep that balance and just... You know, I have a buddy of mine. He's a comedian in Montreal. He's a French comic, very, very wise comedian and very successful. His name is Adib, and he has like a chart. He has like friendship. He has finances. He has parents. He has comedy. He's also a musician. He's like music. Health. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he just kind of like, there's like a chart from 0 to 10 and like, where am I? And then he notices, oh shit, I'm like at 2 with my friends. So let's focus on that. Or I'm at 3 with my diet. So let's focus on that. And he does that like ritually every week or every month. And then he looks back and then he tries to keep it even. And
that's awesome.
Yo, Brennan, man, I'm trying to get myself up to an 8 on friendship. You want to go camping?
Well, and that's also, it's funny you say that because sometimes my friends will call me and like, they're like, oh, I just want to talk. And I'm like, I got stuff to do, man.
Yeah.
What do you want to fucking talk about?
Right.
Everybody's got that one friend that still calls. And you're like, call her. Then you pick up and it's a lot of fun. But there's so many times where you look at the phone and you're like, a phone call?
Yeah.
Right.
Today?
Do I have an hour?
Yeah.
That's fun, man.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Learned a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very. It's nice to go out early because usually podcasts just drag on for decades.
Go out on top.
You know.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado, artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.